everyone. Welcome to the Kimberly Cloud Show. I'm your host, Kimberly Cloud. I have a very, very special guest here for the show today. Can you go ahead and announce to the world who you are and where you're calling from?
My name is Albert Lanier. I am broadcasting from Honolulu, Hawaii.
What is the temperature out there? I must know, Albert.
I didn't look at it. Maybe it's above 80, certainly maybe above 90. I don't know. I really
Where is
don't.
the generalized area that
Sorry.
where is that's okay, no big deal. Where is the generalized area that you stay in? Or if you don't want to give me that, that's okay. But like you got Honolulu, you got
Oh,
Wahi,
yeah. Right.
Mililani.
Because you live
Are
in
you in
Hawaii.
Mililani?
I found out you lived in Hawaii. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I'm on Oahu. And I'm in Honolulu. And
Oh,
I'll
so you're
just
downtown.
keep it at that.
Cool. And tell me, about your past leading up
Yeah.
to your
I
present.
am in Hawaii. It's sort of part of what life's about, right? Your past kind of leading up to your present. Well, my past, obviously born and raised here in Honolulu. And the past that connects to my present and maybe to the future had to do when I was in middle school. When I was in the 7th grade, I was at my what happened was that I was at my local library, and I noticed there were some new classes there. I'd been in some other classes at my local library, after school classes I think I learned about the decimal system, the Dewey Decimal System or something.
The Dewey
And,
Decimal.
right. And some other, whatever else I was learning about it. I can't remember. I guess it didn't make much of an impression on me because I'm coming up blank on that. It didn't matter, something like Men in Black. I guess I'm neuralizing my own memory here, But I happened to see that there was a new class, and it was, I think, literally called a movie making course. And I signed up for it Mondays, 3 p.m. So I was in the 7th grade. I came home. No, I didn't come home. I came to the library before I went home. And I took the course. And the course lasted technically from September, I think, 1982, which is when I was in 7th grade.
I have to tell you something. You
to
have
about
a photo.
April, May 1983. Go ahead.
You have a photographic memory. There's a certain name for it. I was reading it in an article that not many people can remember the dates associated with their memories. Some people
I
can.
see.
Yeah, but
Okay.
that's pretty cool. You can go ahead. That's pretty cool.
I wish I had a photographic memory. I don't. It's nice that you think I do, though. I thank you for the compliment. It's very nice to hear.
It's okay.
It's always nice to do an interview where people are kind. Not that I haven't done a lot of interviews where people aren't, but it's always nice. Oh, compliment's great. But I remember because I was in the 7th grade, so it was easy for me to remember. But I was, 1982, 83. I guess it was like a couple sections. And I learned basic filmmaking techniques. That's what I would call it. I learned shot lists, what I call the shot list, different kinds of shots, pans, close-ups, establishing shots, etc. I learned a storyboard. If people learn about movies or they look at documentaries about movies, you'll see some director's storyboard. I learned that when I was like 12. And, a little bit of lighting, a little bit of editing, most of which I've forgotten. Sad. And I got to make stuff. So everyone in the class had to do a project. So you had a project that you had to do. And I think my project was a documentary of Raiders of the Lost Ark. So I think that came from a book. So we were, shooting tight, doing the photos from it. But I did a documentary from Raiders of the Lost Ark. What are the other things that I did? Yeah, I had my own talk show. I had my own talk show, the Albert Lanier Show. Less said about that, the better. I didn't mind that getting canceled. That was fine. I didn't mind that. And I did a remake of Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan.
Tell me how that went.
With no money. It was basically
but tell me
shooting.
About your baby. This is still your baby, the Star Trek II. So tell me. What did
Well,
it
I was done within the class. I mean, like we were in the back room of the library. So we had this wide space, right? So I'm trying to remember the setups. Well, I would take a like a lectern or something, and use that, like shoot here, set that up, shoot there, and then another part of the room. And I basically rewrote Star Trek II: Wrath of Khan to have, I think, Khan come on the Enterprise and try to fight Kirk. It was crazy. I haven't thought about this. I mean, I've talked about it a little in interviews, but I haven't thought about this in years.
Okay.
So that was nuts. I'm sorry. To me, it's hilarious. But yeah, I did the Star Trek 2. I'll just, for legal reasons, call it a cinematic fan fiction and leave it at that.
So this fiction, tell me what was the punchline, because obviously you find humor in it. So,
well, I mean, I'm just that, you're taking one of these early. I mean, to me, it didn't mean anything to me. You're just going, why do I remake Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan? Because I'm a Star Trek fan. So I'm like, I'll go and do that. Didn't mean anything much to me. I consider it a joke now. Just funny part of my life.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that you shared that with me. You can continue.
Okay. Yeah. So I think it was from, like I said, September at 82, I think, to about April, May 83. It was 2 sections. I think we went up to about Christmas break and then came back after that. And the class ended in April, May. And what happened was the libraries were cutting funding, or the funding was cut for these classes in the libraries. So there weren't going to be any more of those. I think the class was taught by a guy who owned a video store. I don't know if he owned a video store in the neighborhood, but it was a video store. And so we had it. So the library was very nice. They threw us a party. So we had a nice little party, and we watched. Oh my goodness! I hope Steven Spielberg isn't watching this. A bootleg version of E.T. on video.
A bootleg version of what?
A bootleg version of E.T. So we saw E.T. on video. Oh. And now you have to understand, E.T. was now not on video in 1983 because it had been in theaters in 1982. It's not like today where everything's in streaming and DVD and Blu-ray and all that. No, so so yeah, I'd already seen it with my family. I'd already seen E.T. So I got to see it again. Terrible version. I mean, it was terrible quality video. Ugh, terrible, but it was fun.
The government has learned from the bootleggers. Remember how they used to bootleg CDs and VH1s?
When I was in LA in 2008, I was living in LA. They had people on the streets, because I ended up seeing this at the ArcLight, what used to be called the Cinerama Dome in Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. There was a guy selling Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull, which was out in theaters at the time. I know because I saw it at a theater, at the ArcLight, what used to be the Cinerama Dome. So, yeah, I mean, I've actually seen people out in LA selling it. I don't know if they're still doing that. I hope they're not. And there are more sophisticated ways anyway, with what I understand in terms of piracy. But I saw it outright. In Los Angeles.
Do they still bootleg
Oh, yeah.
videos. Yeah.
Well, yeah, they do it to films. They'll probably
Okay.
upload it somewhere on YouTube or something.
Understood. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
they would do it on sites. I used to hear that years ago. I would hear that they were doing it. You had to go to a certain site in Malaysia or Indonesia or whatever, and that was based there and watch movies. Because people used to tell me, "Oh, I go to this site and I watch movies. I don't go to the theater to watch movies." So I'm like, "Yeah, you can do that.
Have you
Not for
heard
me."
of LimeWire? Have you heard of LimeWire?
LiveWire? No, I haven't.
LimeWire. Okay.
Lion Wire? No, I haven't.
Okay. That used to be the
Sorry.
site where everybody go. It's okay. That used to be the site where everybody go to download music and download movies that come
Right.
from Indonesia and
Oh,
stuff.
I see.
Yeah.
Oh, I see you know about these things. Very
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. And tell me, I have a couple of questions for you now. How did you
Hmm.
first get started with writing short stories, and what inspired you to share them on Substack?
Well, I actually wrote short stories technically in college, but I'm
Okay.
glad that you brought that up because I went to a liberal arts college called the University of Hawaii, West Oahu, where I got my
Okay.
bachelor's degree. And I would write short stories in class. Oh, thank you. That's very nice. Good guy. I remember you were in Hawaii. You lived in Hawaii, so you probably
Yeah.
had heard of that. Yeah,
Yes, I did.
I'm a graduate. I guess I'm technically a graduate, not only of that school, but of the University of Hawaii system of colleges. Um, so I I was on the track. This is another thing I've noted in interviews. I was on the track to be a novelist and short story writer. I really went to college to study literature, which I did. And so I'd write short stories in classes. I had basically, I don't want to stereotype it, but I had a basic, I'd say I have a standard traditional boilerplate collegiate education or college education in regards to English and literature. I was on the literary magazine. I took, of course, the literature classes. I wrote short stories, my literature classes, yada, yada, yada. I don't want to bore people.
I don't think you're going to bore my audience.
Oh, oh, again, very nice. Oh, you're
Yeah.
such a nice person. That's nice to hear.
So I mean, I have another question for you.
Sure.
So, can you walk us through your creative process from idea to finished story about one of your short stories that you did?
Trying to remember, I have to recall. It's been a long time since I wrote short stories because what happened before I get to that, what happened was I graduated, got my bachelor's, and then I had done radio in college. I had gone to
Okay.
another campus of the University of Hawaii system, which I'm sure you are aware of, University of Hawaii at Manoa. So I used to
Okay.
go from West Oahu to Manoa on Fridays to go and have my volunteer job at radio station KTUH, where I used to do news. And I did that in my junior year. And so after I didn't do it in my senior year, but after I graduated, my first job and my only job, because I've been a writer for 31 years, was in radio. I was a board op, or as I like to joke, BORED operator. um, so I was a board operator at an oldies rock station. It was, I think, a new one at the time. Played Beatles, Stones, Doors tunes, all kinds of tunes. And then I was left that station. I was looking for work at another station. And that's when I wound up becoming a freelance writer. I became a freelance writer because I needed to work. I needed a job. I needed something. And I was out of work for 2 months. And this is the weird part. And I've said this in interviews. I still don't understand why this happened, but I'll give it a shot. I never read anything that I can recall about freelance writing. There was no internet at the time. It's 1994, so there's no YouTube, there's no Facebook, there's no X/Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, nothing. But I got the idea to freelance. Maybe I'd heard of it when I was in high school, because I took journalism classes in high school. I was on the high school newspaper. I don't know. I always say that becoming a freelance writer to me was a mystery. It was kind of like a Netflix show because it's an unsolved mystery. And I don't know where the idea came from, but I did what I did looking for work in radio. I took the phone book, looked up publications, started calling. I think in the business we call it cold calling. And I got a gig here and I got a gig there, and that's how it started. Now to answer the question, because I used to interview politicians and they used to do this all the time. So I'm doing what politicians did. In terms of writing short stories, what I recall in college was that you come up with a concept, an idea, and where that concept comes from can vary. It will, it could come from anything. Ideas, concepts could come anywhere. Mm-hmm. But generally speaking, what I recall when I wrote short stories was you normally have kind of a protagonist in mind, a main character, and you have some action that they're engaged in that I recall when I wrote short stories. Like I have a couple ideas for short stories now. I should be writing short stories, frankly, but I'm busy with my newsletters and everything. So, okay, I have this main character, I have this protagonist, and I have whatever they're engaged in. In movies, for example, Hitchcock's movies, you would have the MacGuffin, which is the object they're searching for, right? They're going after. It wasn't always a MacGuffin, but it was something they were engaged in, something they're doing. And it could be a kind of mental picture. It could be a person in a room doing something, watching TV. I guess you can call that doing something. But it could be a person writing down something, or a person typing something, or it could be a person fixing, I don't know, fixing their TV. I'm doing this off the top of my head. But it's normally a protagonist and some activity they're involved in. And I would move off from that point. Or it could be kind of like where they are in the stream. It could be you see this person in a situation where a person is in a situation where he's being chased by 3 people. And so if that's what you're thinking of and you think that might be a good short story, then I could go from that point and then kind of build from that point. Because I would then go, okay, who is this person? Why are these 3 people? And who are these 3 people? And why are they 3 people? Why are these 3 people chasing that person? And so that was kind of the process in regards to writing short stories. And it probably still is, if I get around to writing some more short stories. But it's usually you have a protagonist and it's some activity or action they're involved in, and something is either they're making something happen or something's happening to them and they're reacting. So wow. I would say that. I haven't thought about that in a long time. So thank you for asking that.
You're welcome. Well said, by the way. So
thank you.
I noticed you do movie podcasts for 10 minutes, Final Cut on Substack, right? Can you tell me?
And it's also on Spotify. So go ahead.
On where? No, where else? Spotify.
On Spotify. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry to interrupt you.
That's okay. And so what I wanted to know is, what is Substack? Because I know, but I want the audience to know. And what you do on Substack. What do you do on Substack?
Well, Substack is a platform for writers. I found out about Substack when I was after I retired,
Mhm.
and I read a couple articles about it. I think one year, another year, and it was a platform. Number of journalists, and even people that were still kind of active journalists, were going to Substack, and I thought, I had written a blog on Medium.com,
Yeah, I've
and
been on medium.com too.
yeah,
I got to get back on there. That
okay,
that that is good. Good
okay.
platform.
Okay, good. Well, I was on there. I did a blog for about 4 years after I retired. In fact, I retired in February 2017,
Uh,
and then I ended up writing the blog in April.
okay.
Yeah.
And I wanted, because I know what you do. You said that you evaluate movies. So I wanted to, in under 3 minutes, play a little fun game that I never done before. But since you know how to evaluate movies, it should not be a
Okay.
problem. So
Okay.
Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. What is your interpretation of how stepping into a killer's mind, what is your interpretation on how this man thought in
Let me start. Good. Okay.
after you?
Let me start with the near the ending of Psycho. And near the ending of Psycho, you have actor Simon Oakland plays a psychologist.
Mhm,
This is how we find out that this is a spoiler for those who haven't seen Psycho, but
mhm,
Norman Bates is the person that's been going around slaying, or did. And so that character is attempting to give his professional diagnosis of Norman Bates, right? And it's a scene I hate in Psycho, because the way the movie is set up is we don't really know. Don't mind that, it's my watch going off.
it's okay.
But we we don't really need to know that much about Norman, because what Hitchcock and his screenwriter have done is set up a situation where we're left in the dark, because we don't know it's Norman Bates. We think it's his mother. And so when we find out, that's why that scene is so horrible in that movie. So the way that I would talk about Norman is a scene where he's talking to Arbogast, the private eye.
Mhm.
I think that's one of the areas where you get a clue, or some aspect of Norman. And they're talking, and he says, "I'm not a fool, and I will be treated like a fool." And we see that nice guy part of Norman, is sort of pushed away to reveal the slightly more aggressive, possibly aggressive, and possibly malevolent person beneath. So I think that scene has more insight. But yeah, I thought that was an interesting film to choose, and I think an interesting way to get into that film, because that's always been kind of a burr in my saddle, that scene in Psycho. I hate the psychologist scene, because he's attempting to psychoanalyze him, and I'm like, we don't need him psychoanalyzed, because the movie isn't set up that way. But I think if you're going to psychoanalyze Norman, psychoanalyze him by looking at the scenes a little bit more subtly, paying attention. And I'd also suggest Psycho too, because I did a review on it on Retro Review, my review
Okay.
newsletter. And I think Psycho 2 is every bit as good as Psycho. Now, that may be controversial for me to say that, but that's what I think.
What's
Or
the
that
difference
is my
between
judgment.
the two? This is the 1950s film we're talking about, right?
Well, Psycho 2 came out in 1983. Psycho, I believe, the first one came out in 1960, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Um, The differences between them is Psycho 2 is about Norman Bates, whereas in Psycho, it's basically what I would call a split protagonist. We go from the Marion Crane character, played by Janet Leigh. She's the initial lead and the initial protagonist. And then it shifts to Norman Bates. Whereas in Psycho 2, it's all about Norman Bates.
They take you into the room of Norman Bates because they let him out of jail or something, or
That's
something
right. In the sequel, Psycho 2, he's let out of the state hospital after over 20 years. And that's at the very beginning. You know, that's a setup for the movie.
Okay. And one last question. Well, can you tell the people, where do you see yourself going? Like, or even if you are going to be settled with where you doing what you're doing now, however you want to say it. But where do you see yourself? What do you see yourself doing in the future? Or whatever you envision.
Well, I don't know what, I kind of, being into movies. Well, I was a film reviewer for about 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote for a website called Ain't It Cool News. I also covered film festivals overall for about 15 years in my hometown. Here in Honolulu, I like 2 or 3 a year, and that was the opportunity that I was afforded to review movies because I was so busy having to make a living writing for magazines and newspapers. I only got to be a part-time film reviewer and critic for about 8 years, and then covered film festivals for about 15. And so when I look at film, like I said before, when I was a kid, I learned about movies. I wasn't able to be a filmmaker because I didn't have a video camera. I didn't have a film camera. So I took my knowledge of movies and eventually I ended up going to film festivals when I was a teenager, when I was in high school. So I did that all through college. And then once I became a journalist in 1994, I covered the film festival because I thought, okay, I can pitch this as an idea to a newspaper, and I've been there, so I know it. And so it was a perfect fit. So maybe films will be in my future. I believe they will. I'm working on 2 film newsletters right now. Retro Review, which is a review newsletter, and Final Cut, which is also a film newsletter. They're 2 different, though. Retro Review is about reviews. It reviews movies from the past, and it's advocacy. So I'm not just saying, oh, this is a good movie or a bad movie or what have you. I'm also advocating for people to like the movie and support the movie and to become an audience for the movie. Whereas Final Cut is diverse. It's different kinds of articles. Analytical film essays, personal film essays, general film essays. There's a photo section. So in regards to the future, hopefully movies will factor into it. I started dabbling a little bit in screenplays, which I thought I'd never do. I thought being a filmmaker was over for me. Like, I won't do that, But I've also moved on into other areas because I retired from my career in journalism and freelancing. I still write, obviously, but I ended up last year not only creating Final Cut on Substack, but I also ended up getting into podcasting, as you're well aware. So I created the Final Cut. I created the Final Cut podcast, which of course is a promotional vehicle for Final Cut, the newsletter. And then I did Outside the NFL a little later on. So I did 2 podcasts in the same year, which is crazy. And I did Outside the NFL for the entire NFL season, 18 weeks. I'm not doing it again. So I won't be doing that podcast or a sports podcast. I was on a sports show yesterday being interviewed. Felt great. So I like being a guest on sports shows. Hey, if sports shows want me on, I'll come on and I'll talk football. But hosting another sports show, no, I don't think so. It was really tough. you got to look at the games Thursday Night Football, and then you have, let me see, Sunday. I had to look at the games, and then Monday, and I ended up taping or recording really either Mondays at midnight or waking up Tuesday at 5 a.m. And it was brutal for that. Now, Final Cut, the podcast is easy to do because it's, a few minutes and you do it.
I have one last question for you because we have to go. But
Okay.
the question is, do you feel that every child should have at least a camcorder in their house with a computer or some type of electronics so that they can grow if they want to be some type of producer or movie director?
I'm probably the wrong person to ask that question to because I never became a filmmaker. I mean, it's a good question, but I think someone like Martin Scorsese or Steven Spielberg or Quentin Tarantino or someone like that, they'd be better off answering that question. I've reviewed movies, for 8 years, and I'm still reviewing older movies now. And so, yeah, I wish I could say that, but I don't think I'm the right person to answer that question. But I will say this before we end, that I know you're based in Seattle. I lived in Seattle for a little while, and I started developing seminars. I have a seminar called Invasion of the Podcasters. That because I was doing a podcast, I did 2 in a year. I decided, okay, I can tell people how to set up a podcast and create a podcast and do it. So that's something I'm kind of promoting. I'd like to do city by city. I'd like to come back to Seattle. I know there are people in Seattle that watch this. I used to live in Seattle. I lived in Capitol Hill, above Broadway. Love Seattle, great city. Used to go to Dick's Drive-In, one of my favorite restaurants. I get the Dick's Deluxe and fries. I guess this is a unpaid commercial for Dick's Drive-In, but I don't really care because I love the restaurant. It's a fabulous restaurant. And so I'd love to come back to Seattle and do my seminar and maybe do some other cities too. But at this point, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to head off and kind of move on in regards to the future. You talked about the future. I'm ready. I think I'd like to get back to doing seminars. I did a couple seminars in my past. I did a seminar at my alma mater, the University of Hawaii, West Oahu, in 2018 called Free Speech and Fake News, the Crisis of Journalism in the 21st Century. Well, that was a lecture. And I did a seminar when I first went back to visit my campus in 2014. So it's part of my series, The Basics. But yeah, right now I'd like to just basically kind of go to a few cities now and do my new seminar on podcasting, which is called Invasion of the Podcasters. So if there's anyone in Seattle, any groups or organizations or conventions or, any kind of events they're interested in having me come out there and do a seminar about setting up a podcast or creating podcasts, they can contact me. I guess they can email me. That'd be a direct way to do that. I guess I can provide my email. Hopefully, I won't get any.
Before you do that, how can the people reach you? You can provide your email now.
All right. My email is imperiousreader@gmail.com. So let me break that down. imperiousreader@gmail.com. And they can email me. You can contact me, I guess. I'm also, when it comes to Final Cut and retro review, I have a page on Facebook that promotes my newsletters. And you can go to the Final Cut and Retro Review Publications page. That's my promotional page on Facebook. And that's my hub for promoting stuff. So this interview is going to be promoted there, among other places. That's the Final Cut and Retro Review Publications page on Facebook. you can go there to check that out. I got all my promos for my Final Cut and Retro Review newsletters there. And I think my podcast as well, maybe some podcast stuff. In regards to anywhere else they can reach me, I'm on Facebook under my name, of course, Albert Lanier. You can reach me there. I'm also on Blue Sky. I believe it's writer Al Lanier. I forgot the link. And I'm on Instagram. I think it's writer Al Lanier. So you can reach me on Facebook. You can reach me on Blue Sky. You can reach me on Instagram. I guess you can also reach me on X under Albert Lanier. So you can reach me there. Other than that, the final thing I would have to say is just to let people know where they can go and access my newsletters. For Final Cut, they can go to allanier.substack.com. That's allanier.substack.com. allanier.substack.com. And for Retro Review, they can go to thumbsdown.substack.com. That's thumbsdown.substack.com. thumbsdown.substack.com. And you can also find my podcast, Final Cut, on Substack and Spotify. I believe it would be at the final, that Final Cut newsletter. And also my other podcast about writing called The Write-Off. You can find it on Spotify as well as at thumbsdown.substack.com. See?
Okay.
So that's where you can find that.
It's no way you cannot reach him, is what he's saying. He is reachable. So thank you.
I guess so.
Albert. And
all right.
Thank you guys for joining my show today. Take care, be safe, and I'll see y'all later. Bye.
Never waste my time. You are I want.